Hello, good evening, good morning to those of you who are joining in from Europe, and welcome to the first session of the Voice of the Village Roundtable series. We're really excited and very happy that all of you could make the time to be here, and we're really itching to start. Before we get started, just wanted to go through a couple of very quick points on an overall hygiene perspective. Um, Part of what we're trying to do with Voice of the Village is try and capture as many different kinds of voices as possible, which means that they're going to be speaking in different languages. Could you just go to the next slide, please? So what we've tried to do is to make sure that people speaking different languages can speak to each other without a problem. We've enabled a interpretation function on Zoom. If you're comfortable understanding both Hindi and English, you don't need to do anything because the conversations would happen in both these languages. If you would like to hear all of the audio only in English, all you need to do is at the bottom of your Zoom window, you'll see a little globe that says interpretation. Click on that and you can choose to listen either in English or in Hindi. We're doing this for the first time, so fingers crossed. It's an interesting and different way of having a conversation where there are people who speak completely different languages engaged in a one-on-one. A couple of other things, we're expecting this webinar to go on for about 60, maybe 65 minutes, over the course of which we'll have multiple panelists and our guests speaking to you and then interacting with each other. We're also open to receiving any questions that you may have to the panelists. So please feel free to use the chat to write in any questions at any point in time. We do have someone who's actually noting those down, and then we'll pick up a few of them to actually ask the panelists at the end. Just another heads up, the chat is only for questions. So what you're sending would come directly to the panelists and no one else. That's all for the logistics. Before we get into the actual session, I'd just like to give you a quick overview, next slide please, of the Dharma Life Labs. What is it? So Dharma Life Labs is essentially a rural innovation lab with a focus on driving truly inclusive progress within rural India. It's a collaborative between three organizations. There's Dharma Life, of course, an organization that's working to drive progress through an entrepreneur network in rural India. There's the Wheeler Institute at the London Business School, which again needs no introduction, Premier Institute in Marketing and Development. And of course, then we have Sirti, which is a design agency that's leveraging human-centered design principles to try and solve real-world problems. Now, with these three organizations, we have three key things that we can leverage. The local relationships that Dharma Life has through this entrepreneur network gives us direct and immediate access to the people who we are trying to solve the problems for. The fact that with, of course, the cheap data and phones, there's an immediate and almost real-time connectedness through the digital medium. We can be sitting in London and having a long conversation with someone sitting in a village. And testament to that is today's conversation, where we have people not only from different parts of the world, but also different parts of India, villages in Uttar Pradesh, in Rajasthan, and in Maharashtra. And finally, this connectedness allows us to get real-time insights, rich insights that allow us to finally create impact at scale. Dharma Life, through its network of over 16,000 entrepreneurs, has access to over 13 million beneficiaries in over 50,000 villages, which basically means that the understanding that we have, the solutions that we create, have the potential to reach millions of people and drive change. Going on to the next one, we've created a basic website, dharmalifelabs.com, where we will keep you posted on what the work that is happening is, what are the different interventions and solutions that we've come up with, and any interesting insights and findings and stories that we come up with. And one amazing example of how we'd like to kind of do things differently is something called the data stories. I'm going to let Professor Rajesh Chandy of the Wheeler Institute take it up from here and explain to you how we're going to try and take things a little differently. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Vanathea. My name is Rajesh Chandy. I am academic director of our Wheeler Institute for Business and Development at London Business School. And we're one of the partners, along with Siriti and Dharma Life, in this entire initiative that we're calling Voices of the Village. Now, I'm a researcher and an academic, and like many researchers and academics, we're all used to doing work that we consider highly rigorous and can be trusted, but very often is not heard outside the ivory towers of academia. And that's because very often we write these reports in a manner that is hard to understand or not very terribly directly seemingly relevant to those who are outside of academia. And what's unique and exciting about this initiative, which we're launching today, and you will see a lot more on the website that Vanathea referred to, is presenting insights, presenting ideas, presenting real data that's trustworthy and actionable in a manner that we call data stories. So our team at each of the three institutions has been working on not only collecting rigorous information and data, but presenting it in a way that makes these stories come alive. More on that as we discuss, as we move forward, and more on that on the website in the days and weeks and months to come. But I would summarize by saying, not only will you see graphs of the kind that you see on this slide on the right-hand side, but you'll also hear the actual stories of those who are affected, who are responsible for those statistics, that data. Yeah, could we go to the next slide, please? And that's the logic behind the Voices of the Village. So rather than an individual being a statistic, no matter how powerful the statistic or how rigorous the statistic, it's important to be able to hear directly in a way that if I'm a government decision maker, for example, if I'm sitting in Delhi and reading a report from the government or from academia or elsewhere, too often that has been translated so many times and analyzed and interpreted so many times that I'm not getting the direct insights from the village. Now, digital makes it possible for all of us to hear directly from those behind the data, those who are actually experiencing, for example, this incredible pandemic that has swept the world. Next slide, please. And that takes us to the We for Village Alliance, which is a collaboration between a whole series of entities, incredibly influential, as well as entities that provide very complementary insights. For that, let me to explain more on the We for Village Alliance, let me hand things over to Gaurav Mehta, CEO and co-founder of Dharma Life.
Thank you, Rajesh. My name is Gaurav Mehta. I'm the CEO of Dharma Life. So as Rajesh mentioned, we're extremely privileged to have the support of all these partners mentioned here. We formed this We for Village Alliance in the crisis to help respond to the COVID situation on the ground in rural India and use our network of Dharma Life entrepreneurs to become a crisis response force. Extremely privileged to have the support of everyone. And yeah, it's obviously, you all know the situation in India at the moment is difficult. So we're doing our best to use the entrepreneurs to help respond and support the government efforts to respond to this crisis. Next slide, please. So today we are extremely privileged to have a good cross-section of key stakeholders on this panel. And we would start the panel by getting them to introduce themselves to you. I'm giving a bit of background on their work during the COVID crisis. This will be a conversation between the village of entrepreneurs and our global partners and stakeholders, as well as the government of India, as represented by Niti Aayog. So we'll start the discussion today by Manjuji. Manjuji is a Dharma Life entrepreneur from Junjunu in Rajasthan. So I would request Manjuji to tell us about herself, what happened during the COVID-19 crisis, and how she has responded to this. Manjuji, over to you.
जी सर, सभी को मेरा नमस्कार। मेरा नाम मंजू कंवर है और मैं राजस्थान के झुंझुनू जिले के गांव सुल्ताना की रहने वाली हूं और 2016 से मैं धर्मा लाइफ से जुड़ी हुई हूं। धर्मा लाइफ में आने से पहले मैं स्कूल टीचर थी। तो जब मैंने धर्मा लाइफ के बारे में मुझे किसी ने बताया कि धर्मा लाइफ ऐसे ऐसे सामाजिक मुद्दों पर काम करती है, तो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा सुन के। फिर मैंने भी ये काम शुरू किया, तो मुझे अच्छा लगा। सबसे पहले राजस्थान में बहुत बड़ी एक प्रथा है, घूंघट प्रथा। हमारे समाज में महिलाओं को घर से बाहर नहीं जाने दिया जाता है, तो मैंने उस प्रथा को तोड़ा और बाहर आके घर से निकल के मैंने डिजिटल साक्षरता पे काम किया। धर्मा लाइफ के माध्यम से मैंने खुद भी ट्रेनिंग ली, सीखा ऑनलाइन कैसे काम करते हैं और मेरे गांव की महिलाओं को भी इसके बारे में सिखाया। डिजिटल साक्षरता पे मैंने काम किया और महिलाओं को ये भी बताया कि आप नेट के माध्यम से कितना अच्छा काम कर सकते हो। सिलाई है, कढ़ाई है, बुनाई है, अचार बनाना है, इस तरीके से आप किस तरीके से ऑनलाइन काम कर सकते हो। तो मैंने मेरे गांव की महिलाओं को भी इसके बारे में बताया और इस बड़ी प्रथा को तोड़ दिया कि घूंघट में रह के किस तरीके से एक महिला भी आदमी के साथ कदम से कदम मिला के काम कर सकती है। तो मैंने इसका अंत किया और काम शुरू किया और गाँव में मेरी अच्छी छवि रही। उसके बाद जब मैंने काम शुरू किया तो मुझे अपने पंचायत की तरफ से स्वच्छ भारत मिशन के लिए भी चयन किया गया। 63 घरों में मैंने शौचालय निर्माण का काम करवाया। मेरी पूरी मॉनिटरिंग में महिलाओं को ये बताया कि किस तरीके से आप शौचालय का इस्तेमाल करें और अपने गांव में और अपने घर में किस तरीके से आप साफ और सुरक्षित रह सकते हैं। तो उस पर भी मैंने काम किया। उसके बाद पूरे विश्व में महामारी चली हुई थी कोविड-19, तो सभी लोग उससे भयभीत थे कि किस तरीके से हम क्या करें। तो फिर मैंने धर्मा लाइफ के माध्यम से संग्राम परियोजना पर काम किया। मैंने गांव के मेन लोगों को उसमें जोड़ा और उनको जानकारी दी कि किस तरीके से आप घर में रह के डरे नहीं, घबराए नहीं। हमने WHO के थ्रू अच्छी इमेज डाली और इस तरीके से हमने धर्मा लाइफ पे काम किया संग्राम ग्रुप के माध्यम से। तो गांव में लोगों को जानकारी दी कि किस तरीके से घर पे रहना है, डरना नहीं है। और उसमें कई तरह की हमने एक्टिविटी रखी, जैसे पोएम की एक्टिविटी है, रंगोली एक्टिविटी है, 1 से भला 2 एक्टिविटी है। तो इस तरीके से हमने लोगों को घर बैठे बोर नहीं होने दिया और उनका जो डर था, झिझक थी कि भाई कैसे होगा, क्या होगा, हम लोग जिएंगे मर जाएंगे, तो वो छोटी छोटी जानकारी हमने इस ग्रुप के माध्यम से सभी को बताई। तो जब ये काम चला तो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा कि एक गांव में सभी लोग इससे कनेक्ट है, जुड़े हुए हैं। तो लोग मुझसे बात भी करते थे कि हमें ये जानकारी दीजिए कि ये कैसे करना है। उस समय लॉकडाउन के समय सभी लोग परेशान थे कि किस तरीके से हम नेट का रिचार्ज करें। दुकानें बंद थी, मेडिकल की दुकानें भी लगभग खुल रही थी, बाकी बैंक में भी जाने में लोग डर रहे थे और ऑनलाइन क्लासें भी चल रही थी बच्चों की और बैंक में भी दिक्कत थी जाने में। तो इस तरीके से मैंने ऑनलाइन फोन में रिचार्ज किया 5-6 हज़ार का, गैस सिलेंडर बुक करवाया। खाना बना रहे थे तो वो बुकिंग, गैस खत्म हो रही थी टंकी, तो उस पर भी मैंने काम किया। 2-3 हज़ार का मैंने गैस सिलेंडर बुक करवाया। उसके बाद बिजली का बिल है, बैंक का मैंने लेन देन घर बैठे किया। मैंने खुद भी किया और मेरे गांव की महिलाओं को भी इसके बारे में बताया। तो इस तरीके से मेरे लिए लॉकडाउन में कोविड-19 में संग्राम ग्रुप के माध्यम से ये बहुत अच्छा उपलब्धि रही। लोगों को जानकारी हुई कि किस तरीके से मैं ऑनलाइन घर बैठे ये काम कर रही हूँ। तो फिर मुझे हमारे गांव की पंचायत की तरफ से कोविड-19 के अगेंस्ट ब्लॉक ट्रेनर सेलेक्ट किया गया। मैंने मेरे गांव में नहीं, दूसरे गांव में भी जाके 300-400 लोगों को ट्रेनिंग दी कोविड-19 के अगेंस्ट। गांव के मेन लीडर थे, सरपंच, वार्ड पंच, SSG ग्रुप, आंगनबाड़ी वर्कर। मैंने उनको बताया कि किस तरीके से आप अपने गांव में रह के काम करें और इस बीमारी से डरे नहीं। तो बहुत अच्छा उपलब्धि रही कोविड-19 में संग्राम ग्रुप के माध्यम से। और मैंने लोगों को ये बताया कि घबराए नहीं, सावधान रहें। That's all.
धन्यवाद मंजू जी। बहुत मुश्किल समय है। It's a very difficult time right now. So thank you sharing your kind of story. So I would now request Dr. Muniraju from the Niti Aayog to say a few words on the government's response and the initiatives Niti Aayog has undertaken in this difficult time.
Yeah, thank you, Gaurav. And can I share my screen?
Actually, talk verbally, that would be good, because we didn't have the deck. I think sharing rights are only.
Okay. No issue. Government of India took all the initial steps required for bringing courage among the people, and also to bring all the to take the concerns of the people, including it is relating to health, it's relating to livelihood opportunities, it's relating to all sectors of initiative. And in this initiative, we partnered with many, like if you take the district administration or state administration, and also civil society engagement, including Dharma Life, we invited about 92,000 civil society organizations to partner with the state and district administrations so that they can provide all needed support to the people. Especially national level lockdown, when it was announced by the Honorable Prime Minister. So there was many people stuck wherever they are, and they needed some kind of assistance like food, shelter, and also medical assistance like health facilities, masks, sanitizers, and all those things. There is a huge contribution from civil society organizations, and also we equipped the district and state administrations to ensure that no one left behind and everyone get needed support. That was the major concern. Honorable Prime Minister directed all the chief ministers, and also we insisted the partnership with the local self-governments. It may be relating to the rural Panchayat Raj institutions and also the urban municipal corporations. They are also partnered with administrations, and totally we ensured that no one suffered from the because of this COVID. And there is a huge initiatives from the media, social media, and also civil society organizations. They encourage people to be have awareness and change in their behaviors, especially maintaining social distance, and also approaching the health centers which are created for COVID testing and also COVID medical health. And also government took a lot of initiatives to establish exclusive health facilities for the COVID patients and all. And in this way, government has taken all needed steps, and civil society organizations, about 92,000 civil society organizations, closely worked with the ground level, grassroots level administrations, and they provided voluntary services to the required voluntary service to the district and state administrations to create awareness and also distribute food and also distribute masks, sanitizers, and PPE kits, especially personal protection equipments and all they provided. And we funded, in fact, many civil society organizations and also the district and state administrations. That way, we provided all needed assistance, and Government of India announced a huge package. It may be relating to industry, it may be relating to trade and commerce, it may be relating to health, and also providing required infrastructure in the newly announced the public health facilities. That equipments are procured and financial assistance is provided. That way, Government of India has taken more care and also assistance to the each and every organizations which are closely working with the people at the grassroots level. It may be relating to rural areas and also urban areas, especially the backward regions and slums in urban areas. That way, we have taken all care, and assistance is provided. In addition to that, huge packages are announced, and also we encouraged in financial institutions, banks and all, to provide required financial support to put people and industry which are required to maintain their business online. So, and in addition to that, that it's a good initiative which you are doing and interacting, Gaurav and team. And really, we, on behalf of Niti Aayog, I can assure that whatever the further future course of actions are required from either from the national level or from the state or district administration, be it is in urban areas or in local areas, we can provide needed support to your initiatives. It is a great initiative. With this, Government of India is with the people, and its Honorable Prime Minister is more concerned about these issues and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. And thank you for your support and for gracing this panel. So we will now move to our next Village Voice. We are going to speak to Yasmin from Banaras district in Uttar Pradesh. So she will share her story and what happened in Uttar Pradesh during the lockdown time and afterwards, and how she also overcame her kind of personal situation and rose up to the occasion of her village community. So Yashminji, over to you. If you would tell us about yourself and what happened during COVID and how you handled the situation. Yeah.
जी सर.
Yeah. Yasminji, over to you. So I would request you to give us a bit of background. Thank you, Dr. Manuraju, again. Yasminji, if you could give us some background. Yasminji is from Uttar Pradesh, Banaras district. So thank you, Yasminji. Please, if you could give us some background about yourself and your story.
सबको नमस्ते. मेरा नाम यास्मीन परवीन है. मैं ग्राम पतेल, जिला वाराणसी और उत्तर प्रदेश की निवासी हूँ. मैं एक मिडिल क्लास फैमिली से बिलोंग करती हूँ. मेरी शादी वेस्ट बंगाल में एक हाई फाई फैमिली में हुई थी, जहाँ पे मुझे मेंटली और फिजिकली टॉर्चर किया जाता था, जिसकी वजह से मैं बहुत ज़्यादा डिस्टर्ब रहती थी. और इसके बावजूद भी मैं वहाँ पे कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ कर रही थी. लेकिन शादी के 2-3 साल बाद मुझे बच्चा पैदा हुआ, उसको भी लोग मारने की कोशिश किए. और यही कारण था कि मैं अपने मायके चली आई. और अपने मायके आने के बाद मुझे अपने और अपने बच्चे की ज़रूरतों के लिए अपने माँ बाप पे निर्भर रहना पड़ता था. और मैं नहीं चाहती थी कि मैं अपनी ज़रूरतों के लिए अपने माँ बाप पे निर्भर हूँ. मैं खुद अपना ज़रूरत पूरा करना चाहती थी. इसके लिए जब मुझे पता चला धर्मा लाइफ के बारे में, तो मायके आने के 4 साल बाद मैं धर्मा लाइफ ज्वाइन की. और उसमें मैंने पावर प्रोजेक्ट की 2018 में ट्रेनिंग ली, जिसमें मुझे सोलर लाइट, इंडक्शन और सैनिटरी नैपकिन मिला. और मैं उसको सेल करके इनकम करने लगी, और जिससे मेरा आत्मविश्वास बढ़ा, लोगों में मेरा परिचय हुआ. तो इसके बाद मैंने मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन कहते हैं इसके बारे में भी महिलाओं को बताया. और मार्च में 26 तारीख को संपूर्ण लॉकडाउन भारत में लग जाने की वजह से लोग बुरी तरह घबरा गए थे. हर जगह डर का माहौल बना हुआ, अपने ही घरों में कैद हो चुके थे. कोई किसी से मिलता जुलता नहीं था. और अपनी रोजमर्रा की जरूरत के लिए जैसे साग सब्जी, फल फ्रूट्स और राशन वगैरह मार्केट से लाने में भी लोग डरते थे. तो इसी बीच धर्मा लाइफ के थ्रू एक व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप संग्राम पतेल के नाम से क्रिएट कराया गया. उसमें मैंने अपने ही गांव के 150 लोगों को जोड़ा, और जिसमें गांव के कुछ जाने माने लोग, आशा बहन, प्रधान जी, आंगनबाड़ी, सफाई कर्मचारी, इन लोगों को भी जोड़ा. और इस पर मैंने मैसेज, ऑडियो और वीडियो के माध्यम से कोविड-19 की विस्तृत जानकारी ग्रुप के माध्यम से लोगों तक पहुंचाया. और इसमें संग्राम ग्रुप में कई और कैंपेन भी हुए, जैसे बच्चों को कोविड-19 की जानकारी के लिए पोएम चैलेंज कराया गया, और आनंद प्रतियोगिता, और संग्राम की शक्ति, एकता और एक सतर्कता के लिए रंगोली, एंड एक से भला 2 अभियान में हेल्पिंग एंड महिला सशक्तिकरण और स्किल डेवलपमेंट पे भी काम कराया गया, जिसमें ग्रुप के ही मेंबर ने पार्टिसिपेट किया. और लोगों को, अपने ही आसपास के लोगों को साइकिल चलाना सिखाना, और खाना बनाना सिखाना, सिलाई सिखाना, और ये सारे कार्य करके पिक और वीडियो अपलोड करने लगे. मैंने भी इसमें मास्क सिलाई किया और पिक और वीडियो अपलोड की। और उस समय पे मास्क और पीपी किट की बहुत ज़्यादा आवश्यकता थी लोगों को, तो ऑर्डर्स आने लगे। जब ऑर्डर्स आने लगे तो मैं उसको सेल करके 10 से 12 हज़ार रुपये का उस टाइम पे इनकम भी की। और कुछ महिलाओं के पर्सनली फ़ोन कॉल्स आने लगे, तो मैंने उन्हें मास्क और पीपी किट बनाना सिखाया। और इसके बाद लोगों के कुछ मैसेज आने लगे कि दीदी आपको इस सब के बारे में नॉलेज है, कोविड-19 के बारे में। तो कुछ ऐसे भी गांव हैं, बहुत सारे गांव हैं जो कोविड-19 के बारे में अभी कुछ नहीं जानते हैं, उनको कुछ भी नहीं पता है। तो मैं फील्ड में उतरी और 17,000 से ज़्यादा लोगों को कोविड-19 पे अवेयरनेस की। मेरी कोशिश अभी तक यही है कि लोग स्वस्थ रहें और सुरक्षित रहें। धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद यास्मिन जी। बहुत मुश्किल समय है. It's a very difficult time. So, it's to see how you've risen above all the personal challenges you have faced, and also, stood out and led from the front in the community. So, kudos to you. So thank you for sharing your story. I would now request Barbara from the BMW Foundation to say a few words. The BMW Foundation has been a key partner in the V4Village Alliance, and Barbara, thanks for being here. And if you could say a few words, and I truly core mission of the BMW Foundation to promote responsible leadership kind of is embodied in what has been just said. So I think, but maybe I'll hand it over to you from here.
Yeah, good afternoon and hello from Berlin, Germany. Thank you very much for inviting me to join this distinguished panel. I'm really excited to meet here the Dharma Life entrepreneurs and of course the experts and practitioners. The BMW Foundation, through its activities, aims to advance the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations 2030 Agenda. We, in our work, connect and target leaders who contribute to social change. These are leaders like Gaurav, from the founder of Dharma Life, leaders from the civil society sectors, but also leaders from business, government, academia, and culture. When Gaurav first approached us with his idea to work through with the entrepreneurs to fight the impact of the pandemic, we from the very beginning thought it's a brilliant idea, and that it's just so important to understand what is happening not only in the big cities but in rural villages. As for our role as a foundation in this coalition, we think it's extremely important again to share the insights and learnings, not only here but also within our Responsible Leaders Network and with other stakeholders and partners worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I would also now introduce Clive Ellison. Clive, is a director at Unilever. Unilever, as part directly as well as part of the Transform program, has been a key anchor, as obviously Unilever has been at the forefront of fighting the COVID situation through its initiatives globally. So we're honored to have you, Clive, here to talk about the Unilever response and the transfer as well. So Clive, over to you.
Thank you, Gaurav, and I'm honoured and delighted to be joining today. It's particularly good to be on a stage where we're being led by the truly inspiring entrepreneurs that are doing the important work in the field. And we're very happy to be part of the We4Village Alliance. So a few words about why this is important. I think, first of all, the Unilever purpose to make sustainable living commonplace requires us to work together. None of us can do what needs to happen in the world to address the SDGs on our own. And we need mechanisms to collaborate that are able to work with social entrepreneurs who have that energy, they have impact hardwired into their work, and they have the creativity to solve some of the world's problems. And of course, what we need to bring as collaborators with scale is the right access and the right support from the capabilities that we have, our supply chains, our marketing expertise, etc. in the case of Unilever, but also to broaden those collaborations to the kind of partners we have on this panel, to give the breadth of engagement across other value chains. So to do this, so how can we do this? You mentioned Transform, Gaurav. Transform is an initiative we started in Unilever 5 years ago, a £40 million commitment between Unilever, the UK government and EY. And we have used this to make over 50 investments, grant investments in over 11 countries to support entrepreneurs to grow their business. And of course, you've worked with us closely through Transform over those years. We've now impacted over 3 million people, and we have an ambition to go much, much bigger. But of course, COVID-19 created a challenge that we had to respond to, and we pivoted, like many of the entrepreneurs, we've had to pivot to address that with Transform. And we set up something called Survive and Thrive. Survive and Thrive was a platform of support, both financial and business support, for entrepreneurs on the ground. And we initially focused this on our portfolio of entrepreneurs, but we are now launching this as a global platform digitally and encouraging collaborators to join. So large organizations, finance organizations, corporate organizations can join, but we would love to have many more entrepreneurs part of the platform. So thank you very much for the opportunity. We're seeing success with Survive and Thrive already, supporting entrepreneurs to grow their business in pivots during COVID, and we want to see much more of that through the collaboration in the future.
Thank you, Clive. And we are honored to be a part of the Transform program. And I think your statement, the inspiration on Survive and Thrive has stuck with me from day one. I think we have been trying to survive. I mean, the thrive is still a long way, but I think that must be the same for a lot of others. So I will hand over now to, we have Rohini from Satara in Maharashtra. Her story is also very inspirational. So I would ask Rohini to also tell us about her story and situation on the ground and response. Rohini ji, over to you.
नमस्ते, मेरा नाम रोहिणी है। मैं सातारा महाराष्ट्र से हूँ। मैं एक बीकीपर हूँ। मैंने 2016 में धर्मा लाइफ ज्वाइन किया। मैं धर्मा लाइफ ज्वाइन करने से पहले घर की खेती कर रही थी। जब मैंने धर्मा लाइफ ज्वाइन किया तब मैंने इंटरनेट साथी का प्रोजेक्ट ज्वाइन करके गांव के महिलाओं को इंटरनेट सिखाया। मैं जब उनको इंटरनेट सिखाने जा रही थी तो गांव के बाकी प्रॉब्लम भी उन लोगों ने मुझसे शेयर की, जैसे कि पीने के पानी का प्रॉब्लम था, लाइट का प्रॉब्लम था, फिर जो चूल्हे का प्रॉब्लम था। तो फिर मैंने धर्मा लाइफ के साथ मिलके प्यूरिट, इंडक्शन, सोलर लाइट ये बेचना चालू किया। वहां से मुझे आमदनी भी मिलती थी और मेरा घर भी चलता था। फिर गांव के लोगों का मेरे ऊपर इतना भरोसा आ गया कि वो बहुत सारी बातें मुझसे शेयर करने लगे, सुलझाव लेने लगे और उन्होंने मुझे बोला कि रोहिणी तुम पंचायत का इलेक्शन लड़ सकती हो, और उन्होंने मुझे इलेक्शन लड़ने के लिए मोटिवेट किया। ये सब चल ही रहा था, तब अचानक से मार्च में कोविड का प्रॉब्लम आ गया और लॉकडाउन हो गया। तो सब लोग घबराने गए, किसी को भी कुछ भी पता नहीं था कि उस बीमारी के बारे में, हमें खुद का ख्याल कैसे रखना है, घर वालों का कैसे रखना है। तो फिर धर्मा लाइफ के साथ मिलकर हमने संग्राम व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप बनाया कि जो घबरे हुए डरे हुए लोग हैं उनको हम कैसे ख्याल रखेंगे ये बता देंगे। तो फिर हमने खांसते वक्त मुंह ढकना है, फिर सोशल डिस्टेंस रखना है, ये सब चीजें एक व्हाट्सएप पे ब्रोशर बना के भिजवा दी। फिर गांव में बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम थे, जैसे मैं किसान की बेटी हूँ तो फार्मर्स लोगों को बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम रहते थे। वो मुझे कॉल करके व्हाट्सएप पे मैसेज करते थे कि दीदी हमारे जो भी खेती में सब्जियां फ्रूट आ रहे वो बिकने के लिए मार्केट नहीं है, हम कहाँ जाए। तो फिर मैंने कृषि के ऑफिस को कॉल करके जो भी बड़े बड़े विक्रेता व्यापारी रहते हैं उनके फोन नंबर्स लेके वो फार्मर को दिए, ताकि वो सब सब्जियां फ्रूट्स खेत में आके ले जा सके। फिर और एक प्रॉब्लम था कि जो भी लॉकडाउन में राशन कितने बजे लेके जाने का है, मास्क नहीं लगाया तो फाइन होता था, तो लोग बहुत परेशान हो गए। हमको तो पता भी नहीं है कि बाहर जाते हैं तो पुलिस वाले फाइन देते हैं, मास्क नहीं लगाया, इतने देर में 2 बजे के बाद घर से बाहर क्यों चले गए। तो फिर मैंने पुलिस वालों के साथ बात की कि आपका जो भी लॉकडाउन का रूल रेगुलेशन रहेगा वो हमें भेज दो, मैं वो मेरे ग्रुप पे भेज दूंगी, तो लोगों को पता चलेगा कि हमें क्या रूल्स फॉलो करने हैं। तो फिर ये भी प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो गया। फिर जो प्राइवेट डॉक्टर है उनको किट नहीं मिल रहे थे, तो फिर वो पेशेंट कैसे चेक करेंगे। जो भी किट आ रहे थे वो सरकारी हॉस्पिटल के लिए थे, तो उन्होंने मुझे बोला कि हमें किट नहीं मिल रहे, हमें हॉस्पिटल बंद रखने पड़ रहे। तो फिर जो पॉलिटिशियन लोग हैं उनके साथ बातचीत करके मैंने उन लोगों को किट भी मिलवा के दिया। फिर मेरा खुद का भी एक प्रॉब्लम था, मैं एक उद्योजिका हूँ, मुझे मेरा घर चलाना है, तो मुझे मेरा हनी बेचना पड़ेगा। तो फिर मेरे पास भी बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम था, तो मैंने ऑनलाइन फूड जत्रा का अरेंजमेंट किया और मेरा हनी और मेरे साथ बाकी महिलाओं का भी जो भी सामान था जो घर बैठे बना रही थी वो ऑनलाइन बेचना चालू किया, और मेरा और बाकी महिलाओं का भी प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो गया। इसी तरह कोविड में हमने संग्राम ग्रुप बनाकर खुद का, गांव वालों का और घर वालों का सबका ख्याल रखा। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Rohini. Amazing. I mean, use of technology, as you can see. I think it's amazing how the technology kind of changes, transform everything that we're doing, and kind of. I think this is common probably for a lot of you. I think we've really leapfrogged. I think from a technology perspective, multiple years ahead. But thank you, Rohinji. So lastly, I think I would introduce Andreas Kirschlager. So Andreas is a fellow responsible leader, but also more importantly, the CEO and the CEO of the ILEA Foundation, and is a supporter in the We for Village Alliance, and obviously more long-term as well, and has been a key partner for Dharma Life. So Andreas, over to you. You should say a few words. You're on mute, I think. You're on mute. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone from Zurich, Switzerland, from the ILEA Foundation. We are a philanthropic impact investor with the mission to fight poverty through entrepreneurial means. We invest in impact entrepreneurs around the world with the goal to create better livelihood for people in their regions. Doing that, we have been partnering with Dharma for many years now because we believe in the power of entrepreneurs, and we are impressed by what Dharma Life built up with this huge network of impressive personalities, some of whom we met this afternoon, the Dharma Life entrepreneurs. And I'm really humbled when I hear the stories of their lives and what they achieved, and also what they're creating for their villages and what they make possible even in crisis like this global pandemic we are facing at the moment. We were particularly impressed how Dharma Life and its entrepreneurs reacted to this crisis, and we really liked the approach. First of all, to deeply understand the problems, the challenges, the needs of people in the villages, then to spend time to think, to reflect, and to develop good solutions. Act fast, but act on the basis of data and on the basis of knowledge. Find the right partners to work with, to work through these solutions. Find the right partners needed to make these solutions really happening, and then act locally with all the village level entrepreneurs, the Dharma Life entrepreneurs in so many different places. And after that, also think about their learnings, reflect, make the actions better, and share the learnings as we do this afternoon. So I think it's fair to say that Dharma Life and the Dharma Life entrepreneurs changed a lot for the people in the villages already, and I'm sure and I'm convinced Dharma Life will go on to change the life of people there. And we at the ILEA Foundation, we are truly committed to support Dharma also in the future for doing that.
Thank you, Andreas. Appreciate your kind words. So I now will hand over to Rajesh for the kind of most important part of today. I think the discussion amongst these very diverse voices and also the audience. So Rajesh, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Gaurav. Indeed, very impressive, very inspiring. Thank you all for the role you're playing. First of all, I see about 200 panelists, a little over 200 folks signed up right now, 215 according to my count. You have lots of questions
on the stream.
Oh yes, of course, and many more on the live stream. So you no doubt have questions. We do have some time to take questions. A couple of you have already shared questions. I will get to those as well. So let me urge you to share your questions, even if we don't manage to, in the short time remaining, get through all of the questions. These will nevertheless be part of this information insight data gathering exercise. So do share your question in the Q&A function of if you're on Zoom or in other ways. Now, what I took away are stories of that are inspiring because of incredible resilience in the face of remarkable odds, some of which we got a glimpse of. I'd like to explore a little further in questions. We saw the importance of timely, accurate information. Our DLEs shared their experience in communicating timely, accurate information about COVID to fellow villagers and how important that was. And of course, this very fact that we're sitting here hearing from them, and we'll continue to hear from them thanks to the efforts of DL Labs, because that information is now available in formats like these digitally. It really makes me thankful, despite the awful stuff that's happening around the world. I'm grateful it's happening now at this moment when at least this technology is available to us to share this critical information, connect together. I'm so grateful this is happening now rather than even 10 years ago. When, watching each other on video sounded like, even 10, 15 years ago, sounded like science fiction. And here we are communicating wonderfully with folks in various parts of the world. The theme here is Voices of the Village. I'm struck by the fact that it's actually a global village. We have the village of London and Berlin and Zurich and many others online, as well as each of the villages represented among our DLEs. So I'll take a few questions. I'll frame some of the questions that we've been receiving from the audience participants, because these were also questions I had in mind for our panelists. So let's start with an understanding of the challenges before we come to responses as well as potential future collaborations. By the way, collaborations came up several times in virtually all of the panelist discussions. Let's start with the challenges. So here's Raju Nair, a familiar name. Raju asks, there's been a massive surge in the pandemic in recent weeks and days. What measures are being done to arrest the spread in the villages? Specifically, let me add to a question that I had related to that. It'd be good to hear from our DLEs. I will ask Rohini ji to start with this. It'll be good to hear, what are the challenges that are on the minds of fellow villagers as you hear them, either in your direct conversations or in these amazing WhatsApp groups that each of you have created? You're hearing from dozens, sometimes hundreds of your fellow villagers. Rohini ji, what are the challenges that you're hearing fellow villagers express as they confront the lockdown and the COVID pandemic?
हाँ, जो भी फार्मर्स लोग रहते हैं उनको बाहर का ट्रांसपोर्ट पूरा बंद हो चुका है, तो उनका सामान बाहर नहीं जाता है, तो पैसे भी नहीं मिलते हैं उनको, तो घर में पैसा आने का भी प्रॉब्लम होता है। वैसे ही बीमारी का भी बहुत चल रहा है, तो फिर सब लोग परेशान है कि हम क्या करें क्या नहीं करें। मतलब जैसे कि डॉक्टर्स भी ज्यादा अवेलेबल नहीं है रूरल एरिया में. हमारे यहाँ से 35 किलोमीटर लॉन्ग जर्नी करके जाना पड़ता है हॉस्पिटल जाना है. तो बहुत सारे लोग उसी वजह से भी डिस्टर्ब है और फाइनेंशियल प्रॉब्लम तो हो ही रहा है गांव में.
Rohini ji, can you also talk a bit about those who have returned to the villages as a result of the pandemic, those who have returned from, say, cities, Bombay and elsewhere, and how is that affecting life in the villages and their own lives?
हाँ, जो भी लोग वापस आ गए हैं जिनकी नौकरी जा चुकी है, तो गांव आना ही उनके लिए, क्योंकि वो किराया नहीं भर सकते तो बाहर कैसे रहेंगे, तो वो घर आ गए हैं. लेकिन क्या हो गया है, वो घर आने के बाद इधर के भी खर्चे बढ़ने हैं, लोगों की संख्या घर में ज्यादा हो रही है, तो सब एक दूसरे से झगड़े भी कर रहे हैं क्योंकि घर का खर्चा पानी कौन देखेगा. फिर हम 1 महीना आए हैं तो घर वालों ने भी हमको संभलना चाहिए. लेकिन गांव के लोगों को भी प्रॉब्लम हो चुके हैं कि फाइनेंशियल सब डिस्टर्ब हो गया है, और जो बाहर से आए हैं उनको लगता है कि गांव वालों ने हमें संभालना चाहिए अब, क्योंकि हम भी वहां से बहुत बड़े प्रॉब्लम में फंसे, इसीलिए तो गांव में आए हैं. तो ये सब म्यूचुअल अंडरस्टैंडिंग का प्रॉब्लम हो चुका है अभी.
That makes sense. Could I thank you very much, Rohini ji, bahut dhanyawad. Thank you very much. Can I ask the same questions to Yasmin ji? What were the big challenges that you saw? What are the big challenges that you see in your conversations with other villagers as well as on the WhatsApp groups? I can't hear. Can maybe we'll get the sound sorted separately, and maybe I could turn to Manjuji. Manjuji, you described the wonderful efforts you engaged in creating connecting with your community as well as creating these groups digitally. What are you hearing from other villagers about what's on their minds right now? What are the problems they're facing that all of us who are listening to this conversation should know about?
लॉकडाउन के दौरान सभी दुकानें वगैरह बंद थी, तो लोगों को ये नहीं पता था कि किस समय दुकान खुलनी है. तो लोग फोन के जरिए परेशान हो रहे थे कि कैसे एक दूसरे से बात करें. तो अब मैंने घर बैठे खुद का भी रिचार्ज किया और 5-6 हजार का लोगों का भी रिचार्ज किया. लेडीज चल के आती थी कि हम किसी से बात नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, दुकान बंद है, तो इस तरीके से मैंने उनका रिचार्ज किया. बैंक जाने में भी लोग डर रहे थे कि बैंक जाएंगे किसी से टच हो गए तो कोरोना हो जाएगा, तो इस तरीके से लोगों में डर भी था. तब मैंने घर बैठे फोन पे से उनका पैसे का लेन देन भी घर बैठे किया. महिलाएं खाना बना रही थी, गैस सिलेंडर खाली हो रहे थे, तो उस समय भी महिलाओं को दिक्कत आ रही थी, तो मैं उनका ऑनलाइन घर बैठे टंकी भी, गैस सिलेंडर भी बुक करवा रही थी. तो इस तरीके की काफी प्रॉब्लम्स आ रही थी, तो उस पे मैंने घर बैठे ऑनलाइन काम किया, खुद भी सीखा और बताया भी. फिर बच्चे घर बैठे ऑनलाइन स्टडी कर रहे थे, पढ़ रहे थे, तो उनको साइट खोलनी नहीं आती थी, कैसे सर्च करना है, कैसे देखना है, कैसे कनेक्ट होना है, कैसे ग्रुप में बात करनी है. तो इस तरीके से मैंने उनको ये भी बताया कि आप ये ग्रुप है, ये मैम है, ये सर है, आप इस तरीके से ऑनलाइन इसमें स्टडी करो, ये आपकी पीडीएफ फाइल ऐसे खुलेगी, ये आपको होमवर्क सेंड करना है. तो इस तरीके से मैंने महिलाओं की भी हेल्प की, बच्चों की भी हेल्प की. तो इस तरीके से ऑनलाइन ज्यादा काम किया घर बैठे. तो ये बेस्ट पार्ट रहा.
Wonderful. Are we able? Thank you. Bahut dhanyawad. Thank you very much, Manju ji. Yasmin ji, are you able to hear us? And can you tell us a bit about what you're hearing from fellow villagers? जी बताइए. What are you hearing from other villagers online, in your WhatsApp group, or in conversations?
सबसे पहले तो सर जी सर जब संग्राम ग्रुप क्रिएट किया गया तो उसके बाद बहुत से लोग जो है प्रवासी बाहर फंसे हुए थे और गांव के कुछ जो गरीब लोग थे उनके पास राशन की कमी थी। तो जब हम संग्राम ग्रुप क्रिएट किए तो ये सारी चीजें उसमें आने लगी कि दीदी हमको राशन की कमी है, कहाँ पे मिलेगा। तो सरकारी जो योजनाएं जो नंबर हेल्पलाइन नंबर मिलते थे तो मैंने ग्रुप में सेंड किया और उन लोगों ने सरकार के द्वारा माध्यम से राशन प्राप्त किए। और जो है प्रवासी मजदूर जो उनको हेल्पलाइन नंबर चाहिए होता था कि हम कैसे बाहर से आ सकते हैं, तो उनको हेल्पलाइन नंबर प्रोवाइड कराया गया ग्रुप के माध्यम से। और जहाँ तक देखा जाए तो कोविड-19 की जो जानकारी थी लोगों में नहीं थी और जो लोग डरे हुए थे उनका डर खत्म हुआ। और सबसे बड़ी बात थी कि इस आजीविका का साधन नहीं था, कोई काम नहीं करने जा पा रहा था बाहर में। तो जब जानकारी उन्हें प्राप्त हुआ तो वो लोग अपनी सुरक्षा के साथ सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग का पालन करते हुए मास्क लगा के अपनी आजीविका के लिए बाहर निकलने लगे और कार्य करना स्टार्ट किए।
Wonderful. Thank you very much. What I took away, at the risk of grossly simplifying, I took away an incredible set of needs around just life and living life normally. So around health, ensuring health and ensuring information about health. I took away needs around food and sustenance, so the role of the government, Dr. Muniraju referred to as well, with the ration system, among others. Health, not only health in the sense of physical health, such as through COVID, who are surviving through COVID and continuing through COVID, but also psychological health, such as with those who are returning back from the village, from the cities, the migrants, for example, and the interactions among those in the villages. I also heard the needs that are financial, and of course this links to not just lives but livelihoods. Livelihoods in order to be able to sustain lives, for example, education, but livelihoods such as jobs, such as through farmers and ensuring products and services got to and from farmers. I heard a desire to connect, and I see that someone's trying to connect with Yasmin ji there. Very good. Excellent. So lots of needs. Can I now turn to Dr. Muniraju again? Some of this you have no doubt heard. Can you, Dr. Muniraju, given your earlier comments about the importance of collaboration, can you give us some specific examples? You also mentioned the 92,000 NGOs and civil society organizations you've been working with. Can you give us some insights on how these collaborations can work? Those who are listening or those who wish to help, including those on the panel, what can they do to ensure that we're not all tripping over each other? We are able to respond to the kinds of needs, and that's I'm hearing that in some of the questions that we're getting through. How we can come together to respond to this. Dr. Muniraju.
Rajesh, this is Gautam Sharma from Dr. Muniraju sir's office. He has conveyed me, he's informed me to convey that he has just left for the meeting. There's an urgent meeting, so he'd be taking all the questions over email, and he would be really happy to answer all the questions over the email. Okay. So, and the moment he returns, if the meeting gets over, then he would be he'll inform on the webinar itself that he's back.
Of course, I understand completely, and thank you very much for letting us know. Maybe Gaurav, I could turn to you then, since you've been we're all here in part because of your efforts into creating this community. Can you tell us a bit about the initiatives that Dharma Life has been engaged in order to respond to this? There are questions here about the scale of the response that we're hearing. So how many DLEs, just to clarify, we had a question about volunteers. These folks are entrepreneurs, who those who are on our panel are entrepreneurs, and they're working with Dharma Life not only to help fellow villagers, in that sense there's an element of volunteerism, they're also helping earn a living for themselves and their families by working as entrepreneurs. Maybe Gaurav, you could describe briefly for those who are not familiar, because I'm seeing some questions about how all of this is happening. How does this work? How do all of us come together? Specifically, what empowers, how do we ensure that our entrepreneurs are able to do the incredible leadership efforts and all of their work as you have managed it so far?
So Rajesh, basically what's happening is everything is now technology first. I think the response scale, answering your first question, I think we have 16,000 entrepreneurs. We're still in the process to mostly women entrepreneurs, but we're responding, we're still getting them online. So it's going to take even more time, given that not everyone online. So we are able to do this now through the technologies like WhatsApp and Zoom and Teams. And I think we've tried everything in the book to kind of change the physical interaction we used to have with our entrepreneurs to a digital one, and then the digital the interaction the entrepreneurs have with their fellow villagers into a digital one, through which they're now communicating and having kind of response programs. I will, to your second point on the collaboration front, that's where actually that's why we convened this group today. I think government, corporate sector, foundation, social sector, the entrepreneurs themselves, they all play. Unfortunately, I think that's fortunately or unfortunately, or even social impact funders like IDEA, they all play a role. They all have to come together in this crisis. I think while it's generally true always in a lot of situations, in this COVID crisis, expanding the horizon towards areas which are needed, as we have heard just now, having a diversity of groups of stakeholders at the table is the way we move the situation. And I think that's why would be also interested to hear the other perspectives on this. But just to attempt an answer to your question, Rajesh.
Wonderful, wonderful. Another question. This relates to both you, Gaurav, as well as perhaps to Clive. You each have a what in business parlance would be called a supply chain, yeah. And of course, these individuals who we have on our panel, Rohini-ji, Yasmin-ji, and Manju-ji, are the key parts of that quote unquote supply channel. The question is, how do you train women to engage in these activities, specifically going online and working online, and also creating commerce online? And that's a question from Angela Aram. Training.
Clive, do you want to take this?
Clive, do you want to get us started with that?
Yeah, let me get you started. I think the specifics actually are very much Gaurav's cup of tea, because he understands a lot about the successful mechanisms they've been using to date. But I think what the perspective I would say on supply chain and particularly empowering the people who are really in the rural and the end of the supply chain from our perspective areas, is that the collaboration now to give the tools to people has been activated by COVID. So COVID has many challenges, many negatives. I think one of the positives is that it's accelerated collaboration to deliver the right capability into the hands of people who need it in some of these environments. And in Unilever, we are very much committed to inclusive business and inclusive supply chains. And so it's a gift to us to be able to collaborate with organizations like Dharma Life, who are accelerating that access to, in this case, you've just heard, digital in the village environment. And that for me is one of the key aspects of this. Gaurav, but you're very much closer to the real how to.
And Gaurav,
Sure.
maybe
So,
quickly.
please.
Yes, we're running out of time. Please.
Yeah, quickly, I think I would just say one thing. In technology, again, highlighting technology's role, I think Rohini said it perfectly that, connecting through technology, reconnecting supply chains through technology is probably the essence of this crisis. So that's, physical contactless delivery apart, that's probably the most important thing. I would just add.
Wonderful. We have lots more questions, many of which have to do with the specifics of how the Dharma Life Labs and how this series of initiatives will be making all of this happen. Now that we have a solid, as Sam Sloman put it, given you have developed a solid understanding of the needs of rural Indian villages, how do you set priorities on meeting those needs? How do you manage those trade-offs? And what other stakeholders might you need to bring in to support solving the diverse problems? Maybe that's an excellent way to move to the, and also in the process answer some of the other questions, which is about what are the next steps? How can we hear about data stories? How can we help and contribute? So let me invite our colleagues. Let me invite Benathea to help close this this conversation by giving us a preview of what's to come, where we are, and how others can contribute.
Thanks, Rajesh. If you could just have the slides up while they're coming up. I think before I say anything else, I'd like to extend heartfelt thanks and a lot of gratitude for every one of the panelists who made the time and sort of gave us a lot of insight into how they're addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. I only wish we had a 2-hour window to continue this conversation. I think Rajesh was ready to kind of go on with all the questions that have come in from the audience. I did go through the questions, and I'm going to try and touch upon some of the ones that are on the Dharma Life Labs as well as the data stories bit. To the rest of them, interestingly, some of you have managed to touch upon some of the future sessions. So the Voice of the Village is a series. We have a number of sessions planned. If you go to the website, that's dharmalifelabs.com, you will see that we have multiple topics that we plan to cover, including addressing the issues and needs of migrant workers, understanding how hygiene is important. Our next session, in fact, is going to focus on economic empowerment and livelihood focused on women. So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to cover, and we're going to go deeper into each topic as we go ahead. Just to kind of circle back as to why we're doing all of this is the point of Dharma Life Labs is that we want to create what we like to call communities of practice, right? So we want to take an issue, dive deep, leverage our, like we said, local relationships, the digital connectedness that has been mentioned more than once in this session, and get those real-time insights to really drive impact at scale. And I think, it's interesting, we've spoken about the V for Village Alliance. I think for me, the V for Village Alliance is the first sort of big product or big output that has come from the Dharma Life Labs. What started off with a series of conversations which went into a number of surveys that were done to assess the various issues led by Rajesh and a number of people from LBS as well as Dharma Life, led to us kind of crafting and perfecting the response that we were driving, which is in the villages called the Sangram campaign, and at the larger level with the partners called the V for Village Alliance. So the next question a lot of you had was, okay, this is awesome. How do I become a part of it? And how do I engage? And if you could just go to the next slide, we've got a very simple sort of approach as to how we can have other people coming together with us, collaborating with us. You can join us if you want to ideate, input, or implement. We're open to ideas, we're open to challenges, we're open to issues that you're facing as an organization, as an individual. We're open to organizations inputting with all kinds of support. It doesn't have to be monetary support, support in kind, support through expertise. So as an individual or an organization, we'd love for you to reach out. And finally, if you are an implementing organization, you're stuck somewhere, if some of the insights that we have can help in unlocking certain problems or certain challenges, if some of the experiences that we've had executing through the Dharma Life network of 16,000 entrepreneurs, if we're able to kind of give you a solution or help you along that challenge, we're more than happy to kind of sit across the table, well, sit across Zoom in current times. So just drop us an email at dharmalifelabs@dharmalifefoundation.org. You can check us out on the website, dharmalifelabs.com. There's a contact form there as well. Over time, we are going to be putting up more information. In the next couple of days, you will see the first data shot on the V for Village Alliance. And we're going to try and make it a practice that we're going to have at least one data shot pertaining to the topic that we would have discussed in the Voice of the Village Roundtable that goes up as a data shot on the platform within the next day or so. So happy to hear from you. We're waiting to hear from you. Before I kind of talk about what's coming next, next slide, please. I'd like to just once again extend a heartfelt thank you to every single member of the We for Village Alliance, because without them, we know that we would not have been able to have the impact that we would want to at scale. At the same time, next week, we are doing a session with another set of panelists. Again, the format remains the same. We're going to have global leaders and we're going to have rural leaders who are going to have a conversation about the Jaya Alliance, which is an initiative to try and help women in India, in rural India, upskill and earn a livelihood. So I think that line beautifully sums it up. When a woman realizes her potential, she lifts everyone around her. And I'm going to kind of leave it at that. We've I think, just sort of exceeded time a little bit, but we've managed to close it in just over an hour. Thank you so much for attending. Please head over to the bit.ly link/BOV 30th September. Register for the next one. Stay tuned. We will send up a follow-up email with once the data shot is up, and I hope to see you again next week. Thank you again to all of the panelists. See you.
Thank you, everyone.